there are times when you feel strongly about something, you can argue like a lawyer. You're good. I know we've got a son that's an attorney. I think he got a little bit of that from her. Now why is that? No, and she wants to talk things through. And so we do have some interesting, could I say, heated discussions.
Sometimes my dad called me the district attorney.
Yeah. Well, you want to know why and what about this? How does this relate to this? And you can get very detailed and very
I don't like it when
intense.
Things don't make sense.
Well, I know you don't.
I hate that. Hello, everybody. This is the Fascinating Womanhood channel where we talk about all things that are feminine and building strong relationships. I'm Dixie Andelin Forsyth, and this is my husband, Bob. And we're here today. Usually our daughter, Cherry, who's my assistant, moderates these things, but we're giving her a little break today. But we wanted to share something with you about kissing and making up, what to do when you have disagreements with your husband or significant other.
Do we ever have disagreements?
Oh, once in a while. So some of you wondered how often we disagree. We don't fight. I don't know that we ever really have because it's not really my nature, but we disagree and I usually get hurt and then sort of clam up. But we've been married long enough that we have more disagreements than we do, or just differences of opinion because we are not the same. We're really quite different.
We look at things very differently, yeah.
Yeah, and not only that, I need him to be exactly like him because I'm a worrier, and I love the fact that he's an optimist, and I need that. It's a kind of a strength rock for me to rely on because it'd be terrible if I married someone just like myself.
I figure somehow we're going to work this out and work through it. And I just really don't worry that much. I get stressed out. I suppose that's when, if we have a difference, it's when maybe both of us are stressed.
At the same time.
Maybe at the same time,
Which
yeah.
doesn't happen that much now because we're a little more mellow, but we're going to share a couple of experiences with you that happened to us a while back that were the bigger things that you might be able to relate to. So this video is about tips that you can do to repair your relationship, because all good relationships have to have a repair function in them. You can't just bury it and pretend nothing happened and just move on. The first example we thought we would use is, we've built 2 houses together. If any of you have ever built a house together, you'll know that is
high stress. Yeah,
it can be very high stress, and it was for us. We were building this house in Canada.
A log house.
It was a log, those big round logs, and we were really excited about it. But we found out that not only was the price we were quoted completely off, that we were quoted something we thought, it was way more than we need. It was like half.
I was the general contractor. I'd never done it before, so there's always a learning curve. In fact, that's not just true with building houses. It's true with probably everything we do. How long does it take to learn something? And that was a real challenging time because I remember, sometimes contractors will say, okay, I'll be there Friday, and then they don't show up.
And they don't call.
And they don't call.
Like a week later, and you get so frustrated because at the time we ended up, it's a long story, but I'll just shorten it way down. We ended up part of the time living with Bob's parents in their house because the house took so much longer to build than we thought. The place we had, we couldn't stay there anymore, and so we ended up staying with his parents, which was its own challenge.
Right, that was an added stressor. Sometimes the stress just kind of piles up, and it's easy to get a real short fuse in those situations. And I remember sometimes I would say, okay, they're going to be here to do such a drywall or something on Friday, and they didn't show up, and we were behind schedule. This would worry you. I could tell you were stressed, but what you would do is you would start, I think really you were venting. You were just kind of frustrated, and I took it as you were upset with me that somehow I wasn't doing a good job of managing all these contractors or these people. I think we would get into a conflict over, look, I'm doing everything I can do. And for you, it was worry about, we had a family, we had kids, we we had to do something to move forward. And sometimes you can feel stuck in your life. It's like nothing is working, or things are not working out, or working on schedule or on time. And it's pretty easy to get a short fuse in those kind of situations.
Well, I was looking back. I think I might have been pregnant during part of that, which if any of you have had a baby, you know that
could
your
be.
emotions are way up here. So what we learned from that, we did it twice, if you can imagine. What we learned from that is that, or I did too, is that when I vented, I needed to tell him I was venting. I was never upset with him. I was really upset with the builders at times, especially when they didn't call. And you know, Canada, anybody who knows about that, it gets cold in the winter. And if you don't get it to a certain point close to the weather, they can't work in below zero temperatures. So it's maybe months before they get back to the job. So that was really a stressful time for us, but we got through it.
Don't you think you were just kind of scared? I mean, it's like, this isn't working, and you were scared. Your feeling was fear, but it maybe came out almost sometimes as anger, or
I was,
irritation, or
well, also I was afraid because the house ended up costing like double what we planned on, and that's sort of like, we learned, it happens all the time to people. It wasn't just with us. That was a challenge for us. And the second example was also involved a house. It was when we lived in Canada and we came to visit my parents, who then lived in Missouri. They'd moved from California, and we were visiting them, and we really liked it here. And we saw a house in a town nearby that was an amazing deal. It was so cheap. It was
7-bedroom,
100-year-old,
old Victorian, beautiful home with beautiful fireplaces. It was amazing.
And the price was just, we couldn't believe the price. And Bob felt that we should buy this home and use it for a rental. And I was immediately the worrier that I am. I was worried. I thought, how can we be a landlord in a foreign country? Because at that time we were living in Canada, and I thought, what if we have weird renters? And that one I had learned a little bit by then.
Yeah.
I was really worried, but I had learned a little from our house building experience before. And I remember Bob saying to me, I really feel good about this. Can you trust me? And having grown up with Fascinating Womanhood, that was the sort of key for me. And I thought, yes, I do. So I just trusted him, because he usually made good decisions. He didn't just jump into things like without thinking about it.
And you know, it turned out later that it was really a good thing. It's just that there were some anxious moments. And again, whenever you don't know what's going to happen, or things are unknown, the unknown is always anxiety provoking, I think. And
plus, I had little kids. I was still having babies at that time. Some of you know we had 7. And I was young and inexperienced with a lot of things. But the one thing that I always knew is that I always, and to this day, felt really lucky to have married. Because I was crazy about him almost from the first time I saw him, and I did not want our relationship to be jeopardized because of my fear or anything else. That's the one thing I always knew, is that I wanted that, and I wanted the relationship to not be damaged by anything that I might do that might be because of immaturity or...
Well, I think at the time, even though there may have been times when our emotions would get high, or we would almost, I don't think we really so much argued as we just have a difference of opinion and really tried to understand each other and talk it through. And, you know, we've never been a couple that yells at each other or calls each other names or things like that.
I have kind of a soft voice. I don't yell. It's not my thing. I cry a lot.
Well, if anything, if you're stressed, you probably get more quiet.
Yeah,
you don't get loud. Although there are times when you feel strongly about something, you can argue like a lawyer. You're good. I know we've got a son that's an attorney. I think he got a little bit of that from her. Now why? Now why is that? No, and she wants to talk things through, and so we do have some interesting, could I say, heated discussions.
Sometimes my dad called me the district attorney.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
you want to know why and what about this? How does this relate to this? And you can get very detailed and very
I don't like it when
intense.
things don't make sense.
Well, I know you don't.
I hate that. But I love about him, Bob, that he is patient with me and he lets me verbalize things. But more later on, like now, I have learned, and it's okay for you to learn too, how to handle these situations so that they don't even get as hurt feelings as we even had over those years ago. Because nowadays, we still don't feel the same about everything. But I've learned to be able to say to him, is it okay if I vent for a while? That's the signal that he knows I'm not upset with him.
Well, she gives me a task. If I know there's a task to do,
which is
I need to listen and try to understand. I do better with that. Hinting doesn't work too good.
Doesn't work too good. And he's a psychologist. If it doesn't work for him, it's not going to work for too many other guys.
I got to say, there's one thing I want to say that, it's interesting. We're talking about big things like building houses or buying sort of big items. I found that we can have differences or conflict over something really small, like should we go wash the car first or go get the groceries? Well, let's see, we need to wash the car first. No, we better do the groceries second because there's might be something that needs to be in the fridge or in the freezer. So sometimes even little things like that can end up in a conflict or an argument or, just a difference of opinion. I see some couples arguing over money, how to deal with the kids, how to deal with neighbors, friends, who comes over. I mean, there's so many even little everyday things that can come up. And I think there's some things that we have found that sort of help us, maybe some tips, I guess you could call it, if we could say it that way. How do you deal with a difference of opinion or, even where you get to into a conflict with one another.
You may find you're in it before you think,
you're in it before you know it.
So here's 4 tips.
All right.
Okay, number 1, and this is for the ladies, not for your husbands. Number 1, identify your feelings as soon as possible. And for me, it's when I'm in it, like, wait a minute, what's happening? How am I feeling? Why am I upset? And by feelings, I mean, like, are you afraid? Are you worried? Do you feel threatened? Do you feel attacked, intimidated? The more you can think, what's going on with me?
You hurt?
Yeah. Is something he did or said hurt you? For me, it's more often than not anxiety.
Well, because anger is something you use to protect yourself. It comes after these other feelings. So you might say, well, I'm angry. Well, what else are you feeling? You're probably feeling something in addition to the anger, and that's something underneath that triggered the anger.
Right. When you do, then number 2, once you've identified it, like, okay, I'm doing this. I'm doing this yet again. Find a grateful thought. And what we mean by that is, and what I do is I think back about how grateful I am to have him, that he actually married me. When I remember as in college dreaming about, wouldn't it be great to be married to him? I go back to that. I've gone back to it 1,000 times and remember our relationship and how important it is to me. And it's like putting a perspective on it. And is this worth it? What is going on here? Is it worth it? And how grateful I am that he is there for me.
And I think it's okay to talk about what your feelings are. You might say, this hurts me, or this scares me. I'm scared about this. I'm worried about this. It's okay to talk about that. And I guess what I hope is that you feel safe enough to share those feelings with one another. I think we feel safe. We're safe.
First, you have to be in touch with it. And when you do share them, share your feelings, your personal feelings, which gets into the 3rd tip, which is do not insult him personally, like saying you always do this or you don't care or any of those things are name calling. It damages your relationship. But what you can do is say how you are feeling, like I'm feeling afraid, not I'm feeling like you're messing up. Those are not feelings. Those are thoughts. Yeah. Don't insult him personally or the relationship.
I think sometimes you can get into an argument kind of almost get into a battle of who's right and, kind of almost keep hitting at each other. And that usually doesn't really solve anything.
Nobody ever wins those things anyway. Once you realize, we're in an argument, no one's going to win this. It's easier for you to diffuse it, de-escalate it.
Sometimes you have to cool down. I think for me, sometimes I almost have to maybe even walk away or just let myself cool down, because I know that, once you pumped adrenaline, it can last for quite a while. Mm-hmm. And your adrenaline's going to get you ready to fight or run or something. And
okay, I'm glad you brought that up, because the difference for me is if he is upset and we just sort of take a break for a minute and he goes and does something else, he deals with it in his own head, and then when he comes back to me, it's like everything's fine. For me, it's not fine until we verbalized like the I'm sorries and things like that, which leads into tip number 4, taking responsibility for your own part in it. And so what I have learned to do, and I do it, is to, as soon as I catch myself, say, I would never deliberately hurt you. I do it almost every time I know I'm messing up. And you know how much you mean to me. It's just that I am afraid. I am worried, or whatever it is. Or today I felt like I was a little bit tense. I said, I'm sorry, I feel a little short, but I am really tense. I have this, and this that I've got to get done, and I don't know how I'm going to have the time to do it.
Well, we just had a big plumbing emergency in the basement. And it's a mess. And every time I know you look at it, it irritates you. You got to go,
I'm on the OCD side. I don't like messes. I don't like things chaotic. And when I walk downstairs, just a few feet down there, everything's a jumble. Now they fixed the plumbing, but the carpet's all ripped up, and everything's not organized or disarrayed. It's hard for me. I hate it until things are back in place.
Yeah, and we're still waiting to hear from the adjuster. So you're kind of on tender hooks and on the edge. And, the thing is, I think that if you can, even during stress and challenge times and problems, if you can learn to kind of live peaceably with one another, I think that's kind of neat. And I think we've kind of learned to do that.
Yeah, but you can too. There's more tips, but these are some basic ones that you can do. Even if you say he started, doesn't matter. The relationship is number one, and it should be number one. And that's what leads you to developing this lifelong love affair with this guy that you fell in love with, and you want it to stay. You don't want some small thing like a plumbing issue to destroy your relationship.
Relationships to me are the only thing that really lasts. I think we've mentioned before that 80-year Harvard study where they said, money, positions, degrees, all of these things are interesting. You can be president of a big company, but it's the quality of your relationships. And for me, my relationship with you is really the most important thing that I've got. So
same with me. And it can be for you too. So thank you for joining us. And I know that you can do this. It's a lifelong process. Remember, we've been married over 50 years. So you can take time to learn all these things too. Don't forget to read my book, Fascinating Womanhood for the Timeless Woman. And the workbook is really helpful because it makes you write things down. It's specific for you and helps you in your personal relationship.
And give yourself time to succeed.
Yeah. Give yourself time to succeed. You'll be fine, and you'll do great, just as long as you're married to a decent guy, not a perfect guy, because I haven't met one yet. Just that he's
not.
He's next to
it. I'm getting there.
He's getting there. Thanks again for joining us, and we will see you next time. Bye.